We've all been there, in the middle of a job, everything going smoothly, until boom, you're missing a part. United Refrigeration is your one-stop shop for all your refrigeration needs. Use your computer or smartphone to go to www.uri.com at any time of day or night to check stock on your favorite brands, such as Copeland, Sporlan, Carlisle Compressors, Danfoss, Emerson CPC boards and sensors, Carrel, Hussmann Parts, and K2Therm. United Refrigeration Inc. is home to these brands and many more. Looking for information on refrigerant conversions or refrigerant banking? Quick access links on the homepage can get you to the information you need. All approved accounts are able to see live-to-the-minute inventory and pricing. Product not in stock at your local branch? No problem. Use the Nearby Stock feature to find a local branch that does have what you need. Are you looking for a branch address, phone number, or after-hours number? That's all available as well. Just click on the branch locator and search for your local branch. Have a model number and looking for a replacement part? www.uri.com/ARP has a vast list of quick pick replacement parts. Just search for the model number of the equipment you're working on and click the Replacement Parts tab. If you don't have an account, click the Register button and we'll have you online in no time. With more than 400 locations in North America, each United Refrigeration branch is fully stocked for immediate pickup. Our branch employees have in-depth technical knowledge, so we can help you get what you need when you need it. Visit your local store or www.uri.com/ARP today. United Refrigeration Inc. has all your solutions down cold.
Hey guys, here's question number 3 for the month of September. What kind of oil does a Carlisle compressor take when it's low temp, when it's R448A? Let me know. Email your answer to arpgiveaways@gmail.com.
The Sporlan division of Parker Hannifin Corporation is sponsoring this podcast. Sporlan is the leading manufacturer of HVAC and R components. Using quality materials and craftsmanship, Sporlan maintains a commitment to innovation, manufacturing excellence, service, and support for its customers since 1934. The company is known for its catch-all filter dryers, thermostatic expansion valves, solenoid valves, pressure regulating valves, suction filters, electric valves, controllers, supermarket monitoring solutions, chemicals, smart service tools, Zoom Lock Max, press to connect, and Zoom Lock Push to connect refrigerant fittings. If folks want to learn more, what do they do?
You can go to sporlan.com.
I guess that's Jim and John for Sporlan signing off.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to Advanced Refrigeration Podcast. You're here with your hosts, Brett Wetzel and Kevin Compass. What are you doing this week, man?
Well, it's only Tuesday, and I was hoping it was Friday, so this is one of those weeks already.
One of those days that you just don't want to wake up.
Yeah, it was going back to the same place every day, and it's just...
You still working on that screw rack?
Yeah. Every day was supposed to be the last day, and then it just every day there's more and more and more.
Well, you were showing me that you were running some service calls for the service department. What have you been finding out there here late?
Oh, well, I showed up on Monday to that screw rack store to, finish the set super eats in the freezer, and I walk into the rack half empty.
Wait, why?
Oh, because in a brand new case, like 6 months old, somehow all the screws fell out of the fan motor. And said fan motor blade was the thickest blade I've ever seen in my career.
Mm-hmm.
It cut through a Sporlan dryer.
Come on.
It was rubbing for that long that it took the whole chunk out of the corner of the dryer. Like it machined it out. And it was literally just blowing liquid out.
Huh. Any idea when it started? Like, can you see a trend, or is the trend just constant all the time?
it's kind of fucked up because we started up this freezer. We've been stepping it down. And the freezer's like I don't know, like it's a massive load in the rack, almost a 20 horse screw load worth of a load. So it's kind of hard to tell because the freezer kind of makes it look like it's a trend down, but it's not, because I mean it just ate up all the gas until it came on. Plus it was suction stops. It's all the gas is logging in the freezer. So it looks like Sunday or Saturday night it started.
Yeah.
And then milled its way some more till it milled its way, you know. It was a straight, you can fit a ballpoint pen in the hole.
Wow. So I've never seen that happen, because I mean typically the filter dryers are pretty thick, and then on top of that it would, I'm surprised no one heard that. Like that dude, when you walked up, like if the fan blade was still running on there, it probably sounded like a 64 Chevelle just banging against.
Well, the thing was like a Ninja Star. It was so sharp at the end of it. Like it was literally that sharp. Like I sliced right through a rubber glove, like one of the mechanic's glove. Like I literally put my hand on the blade. It went right through it.
Damn.
That's how it literally sharpened itself. But there wasn't a screw in none of the screws in the faceplate, none of the screws in the backing of the motor, all gone. Can't find them anywhere in the case.
They didn't exist.
Either
that or someone pulled them out, de-iced in the case, and forgot to potentially put the screws back in.
Unfortunately, we're doing a remodel here. They have our service department, 3 other companies' service departments, in-house, EMS company, 2 different electrical contractors, all doing the same thing.
That sounds like it would be really busy.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Fun times. No, I've been looking at more real estate, trying to figure out a place for the training center. What else did I do this week? So like you said, it is only Tuesday, and just a shit ton of conference calls. I drove up to Oklahoma to see the kid on Friday night, because it's like a 6-hour ride up to the middle of bumfuck Oklahoma. It's up by Kansas. That's how far north. It's actually on the Panhandle. So other than that, just training stuff and making the training schedule and trying to get this fall, started as far as, training our guys in person. That's it. So, but tonight, I guess, Kevin's been working on some service calls, and, there might be some oil issues that we want to talk about. One of the biggest things people ask me is, what oil is supposed to go in what compressor, and it really depends on the manufacturer, depends on what refrigerant you have in there. Typically, when you're dealing with a Bitzer or a Copeland, it's usually 32 weight and POE. Unless you are, working on Carlisle low temp, they use 68 weight. So this has always been really confusing, because I've seen some racks in the past where I've seen a bunch of Carlisle compressors, and then they put a satellite on there. So I'm just wondering what that would do. And Kevin has some experience with that, because it's happened once or twice or couple. How many times do you think this has happened in your career where someone put the wrong oil in somewhere?
Oh, I lost count, probably 15 or 20.
All right. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Basically the issues that you could potentially have putting in the wrong oil in the system. So take it away.
So, all right. So this question keeps getting brought up. So what happens if you put the wrong oil in? Now, it really depends. I mean, mixing POE and mineral oil, it's never a good thing, because mineral oil is, a natural oil, and it breaks down very easily. POE oil is like dumping degreaser in something. So you're going to tend to stir up everything with that dirty mineral oils had in the system for years. So you want to try to avoid that. Now, there's different viscosities for oil. So same with mineral oil. Like there's different viscosities of mineral oil, what they require. Now, every compressor manufacturer has this documented, whether it's Copeland, Carlisle, Bitzer, Bach, and Dorn, and all those people. They all have documented what their oil is. Now, this is where it gets dicey because certain manufacturers say you got to use their oil. So we'll go over that here in a little bit. But like Brett was explaining, a Carlisle for POE oil takes RL68. Okay, RL68 oil. Copeland takes RL32 POE oil. It's RL32 MAF. And apparently that does matter. It's got some kind of corrosion inhibitor in there. It's 32 MAF. Now, Bitzer supplies a different oil. And there's always been this thing, whether there was, me and Brett, remember I was talking about this anti-foaming agent that was supposedly in this Bitzer oil that nobody could prove that it's in there. And from what I was told, it's not in there. And Bitzer has their own oil. I think it's not MAF. It's a different makeup. It's their oil. Basically, the Emerson oil, the POE oil you get, the MAF, is made by MCAT. How do you say that with the oil with the polar bear on it? There's only like two oil manufacturers.
I have no freaking idea. Like
I've
probably looked at it a billion freaking times. But I can't say what the freaking name is.
I pumped in like a million of them.
BSE32.
BSE32 is Bitzer oil.
Yep, and then there's BSE55, which is also a polyester oil. And the BSE85K, and once again,
so 85K is going to be your CO2 oil.
Yep. Yeah.
So, but here's the thing for Copeland's, they use RL68HB for CO2 oil.
Which compressors do that?
So Copeland CO2 compressors use RL68HB.
Do you know what the HB stands for?
It's got something to do with high pressure, high density. So what I was told by two compressor manufacturers that told me this exact same thing. It's what matters is the viscosity and the pour points. The viscosity at certain temperatures and pour points is what matters with oil. So all these compressor manufacturers have a certain oil they want. This is where they've tested everything and all the data is there. And this is how they, torture test everything. And this is what they want to run. Now go ahead.
M Karate.
Yeah. Is that how you say it?
I mean, it says karate at the end, and I'm just saying.
I mean, it's the one.
Yeah, well, I know. That's what I'm saying. So I told you I'm the world's best phonetic speller. So I'm going to pronounce it M Karate.
So yeah, they make their own 85 weight oil for CO2, which is what most of our supply houses have, and I believe United too. Like that's where we're getting most of our CO2 oil, because getting Bitzer 85 weight oil is a pain. It has to come from Georgia, and no supply house is getting Bitzer oil. So, but go ahead.
M Karate is made by New Calgon, by the way, if anyone was interested.
Which I'm pretty sure New Calgon probably makes just about all of our oil.
Yeah, and so they also the oil that they have is for the Bitzer, they have an RL85HB, like you were saying.
So what happens when you start changing this? So like say you have a Carlisle rack with RL68 in there. Okay, you have a Carlisle rack running RL68. Now you take that and say you have a giant oil leak, and you add in 5-6 gallons of RL32 oil.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you just cut the viscosity of the oil in half.
All right. So just in case you don't know what viscosity is, it's basically how thick the oil is. The higher the number, the higher the weight, the thicker the oil. So 32 is going to be less than 68. 68 is going to be less than 85. And, obviously, what do they have? The Solstice 170 or something for the scrolls?
170 and then like 150 for the screws.
Yeah.
You'll know that because it is like absolutely miserable to pump that shit in the middle of winter.
Yeah, if you ever have to pump in anything like above 85, recommend that you get some sort of hydraulic or drill driven pump,
or pump it down and dump it in.
Yeah, or pump down the separator or whatever you have to do, because trying to pump that with a regular standard pump is the most painful thing in the world, especially
it's like molasses.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's literally, if take some syrup out of your fridge and try to run that through your oil pump, and that'll be the equivalent of how rough it's going to go. Like there was no access to pump down this one system. It was out of oil. They had a big leak, and I used a torch and a heat gun to heat up the oil, because it was sitting in a fairly cooler area. So once I got it up to like maybe 100 degrees, then it actually started pumping in a little bit nicer, so I didn't get Popeye arms.
Once you reduce that pressure, once you reduce that viscosity of that oil, say you dump in, 5 gallons of RL32 oil, you get the rack back going, everything's great, you're the hero. The manager still hates you because you cost a bunch of money. So after you get everything back going, now the next couple of days, you start having oil issues. Okay. Well, what's going to happen is now you're going to have oil pressure issues, for one, because now that oil pump that was designed to pump thicker oil is not going to pump that thinner oil the proper way. So you're going to have less oil pressure. You're going to lower the pump oil pressure. And then also the secondary thing, which Carlisle seem to be worse about this, is they're going to pump out oil more. So you're going to blow through oil more than you would normally, because you're not lubing the surfaces properly, and those bearings are moving more oil. You're moving more oil out of that compressor. Those tolerances were made for that thicker oil. So now you're starting to pump more oil. So now you're going to have oil separation issues because you're moving too much oil. So that oil is not going to come back. And then as it thins out more, it's going to become more and more of an issue. And you're going to start logging in cases. And it really depends on what refrigerant you have too. I mean, you get some of these trash 400 gases like 422D or 407F, it's going to be way worse. That's why it's imperative that you put the right oil in the rack. Now, say you have a Copeland and you put RL68 in there, you're going to change the way that oil pump works. You're not going to reduce the oil pressure as much, but that oil pump may not be able to pump that oil because it's the other way around. That oil pump is designed to pump thinner oil. Same with those bearing surfaces. So that oil pump may not be able to pump that oil properly. Those compressors may have oil issues. You may lose net oil pressure slightly, not as much as a Carlisle would, but you may lose net oil pressure. I wouldn't imagine you're going to pump oil as fast on a Copeland if you went with thicker oil. I would think the bearing surfaces and everything would, still be coated, but with a Carlisle, it's definitely more of an issue. Same thing with a Bitzer. If a Bitzer takes RL32 oil, I've put MAF oil in there and had zero issues. I've also put the Bitzer oil in there, and they say that the Bitzer oil doesn't foam, but I've seen it foam. I've started racks with the brand new Bitzer oil, and it still foams. So that is a slinger issue. So when you see that foaming in there, people think it's flood back a lot of times, which sometimes it is. Oil foaming could be caused by flood back. Okay. Or it's caused by the slinger slapping the oil and picking it up and moving it throughout the compressor.
Could it be that the oil level is too high as well, if that slinger is really slapping it around?
But even if they're lower, like they still seem like they foam. I mean, from what I've seen, they still foam. So,
hey guys, today's episode is sponsored by Westermeyer Industries Serviceable Oil Floats. Many oil separators contain an oil float to effectively meter separated oil back to the compressors. Westermeyer Industries has taken this concept and perfected it with their new line of serviceable oil floats. These floats feature an improved design with fewer components, allowing for greater manufacturer consistency and up to 20% increased oil flow versus their legacy models. These floats also feature an integrated magnet to shield the oil path from debris and have been field proven in supermarket applications. Westmeyer Industries offer replacement oil floats not only for their own separators, but also cross-compatible models for our competitor oil separators as well. You can find out more about the Westermeyer Industries serviceable oil floats by visiting westermeyerind.com/floats. Once again, that's westermeyerind.com/float. Let's get on with the episode. Hello guys, this episode is brought to you by Fieldpiece. Fieldpiece's next generation of vacuum pumps will cut down on evacuation time and make oil changes on the fly a breeze. They are lightweight, durable, and feature 4 inline ports plus a large oil reservoir. Get pumped about these 3 new Fieldpiece vacuum pumps available at distributors now. Learn more at fieldpiece.com or follow us on social media at Fieldpiece Products. Thanks again, and thanks for listening.
That's one thing to watch out for. I mean, on those compressors, if the oil's thicker, now that slinger's hitting there and it's not picking up the proper amount of oil. So I don't really know what we do with the bitzer. I've never really seen somebody put RL68 in the bitzer. Go ahead.
No, I'm trying to remember if I've ever heard of someone doing that. I'm pretty sure I did because they'd never seen a bitzer before, whoever I was talking to, and they thought it was a Carlisle. I was like, you said Carlisle's 68 weight. I'm like, yep, that store's bitzer. Shit.
Yeah, I mean, 1 gallon, probably not going to hurt anything. 2 gallons, probably not going to hurt anything. You get like 4 or 5 gallons in there, it's probably going to become an issue. I mean, 1 gallon of oil is not going to hurt anything.
I'm trying to think of anything else that would actually cause. So I'm assuming that if you went with a thinner weight than what was required, you would also have excessive discharge temperature, yeah? Because you'd have more friction.
Yeah, you're going to have way more friction.
Yeah, so you should, it technically, I'd think it would run a higher discharge temperature, right?
It should. I mean, because you're not coating the surfaces as much.
It'd be thinner. It would be only comparable to throwing freaking really lightweight into like a screw, right? Where it doesn't have that lubrication property.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to cause major issues. Now, I've seen this also become a problem here as of lately is when mineral oil gets trashed, like trash, it loses a lot of lubrication properties. Like when it's like overheated and trashed. And then I've seen guys where they've come in, and it's still R22 in mineral oil. We still have a handful of stores out here, and they go throw like a compressor in, and it's got POE oil in it.
Oh no!
They don't drain it out. It gets a little bit of POE oil in there. They have an oil leak or something happens. They dump a couple gallons of POE in, and now we get this like mixture of like just trash, nasty oil. And it seems to be eating up oil pumps. So if you're going to go about that, you need to commit to it and just do the oil change.
Yeah.
Because once you have this like mixture of oil, it seems to lose all lubrication properties.
Have you ever seen any kind of deposits where the oil looks like different, where looks like it almost has moisture in it, but potentially due to the fact that they have 2 different types of oils in there, mineral and a polyester? Because if you guys aren't aware, typically when you do a retrofit on a rack, or retrofit really on anything where you're required to change the oil, most customers will let you go with having 5% mineral oil left in the system and 95% polyester. And the way that you actually do that, you use what's called a refractometer. Typically, we use refractometers to check freeze points of glycol and brine solutions. But in this instance, this particular refractometer, which is just different, it has different scalings on it, will actually tell you what the percentage of what you have in the rack, after retrofits. Because, I mean, you're changing the oil 2-3 potential times, and you want to make sure it doesn't exceed, what the customer wants.
Yeah, I mean, I have like after you say like you're doing the first oil change, by the time you get all the compressors done, you go to like dump the reservoir again, like before the end of the day. Like it usually has like you could tell there's 2 different oils in there. Like you could just look at it and see, like you could see the cleaner shit floating up at the top and like the dirtier shit's down at the bottom. Like you could definitely see if you put it in a clean bucket, you could probably split it apart.
Really?
I mean, it looks that, and but it also depends on how nasty the rack is. Like, and if it's been blasting R22 low temp and people haven't kept up with maintenance and it's just cooked, like you could definitely see the difference.
So when I do oil changes, the first thing I do is try to turn off as many pumps as I can and just have them drain them physically with with a using their own pump, right? And just letting that spray into a bucket until it starts sputtering. Because then at that point, I'm checking for the oil fill switch to make sure that's working. But typically, I'll empty the reservoir before I even do that and pump that reservoir all the way to the top with brand new fresh oil. So as soon as I get those other pumps emptied, I could just open up the line to it and just let that oil feed. And then I'm always hooked up to the oil reservoir to fill it up in case I need more.
See, I stopped doing that just for the fact that as I was doing it, we were wasting massive amounts of oil because that oil is still going in the pump, so you haven't done the change yet.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not getting all the mineral oil out. You end up having to do more changes that way. So what I've been doing as of late is drain the pump down, clean the pump, put everything back together, and then I fill it up with oil, and then I go to the next pump, drain the pump, fill it up with oil, then I'll drain the reservoir last. Because the issue with filling up the reservoir, we started using more oil that way because other compressors were calling for oil. So say like you haven't drained number one yet.
Mm-hmm.
Number one's still taking that POE oil out of there. Well, you're not getting the mineral oil out of number one. It's still floating through the system and mixing.
Yeah. So one step that I do is I shut down all the rest of them, because typically if a Copeland compressor is good, that oil, filled all the way up should basically maybe last an hour and a half before it actually empties it out, unless there's a severe problem. But I mean, that's a good check to have as well, because you could basically shut down that pump and watch it empty out in 2 minutes, and you're like, well, I guess it's using a shit ton of oil. So then it's a diagnostic tool at that point while you're doing it.
Hour and a half. I never seen one last an hour and a half.
Really?
Maybe like 30 minutes is pushing it.
I've shut it off and watched it because I was just trying to see how long each one would take, because I was just curious because they were having oil issues. So I want to make sure, because a lot of times you'll have an oil issue where reservoir is low and you won't notice it because one sight glass will be all the way up, filled all the way up. So, there's always that one compressor that's feeding a shit ton, just out the whole reservoir and lowering that pressure down too low.
Yeah, I don't know. I just tend to stop filling up the reservoir because it seemed like it was causing we were doing more oil changes that way. Yeah. It seemed like we were wasting more oil. We were getting better results just doing two of them. And the second oil change, I do that way though. I do pump it into the reservoir. But yeah, it just seemed like the first oil change, we were getting more of the crap out just doing it that way. But yeah, I mean, putting the wrong oil in there, 1 gallon probably isn't going to do anything. But you start mixing all kinds of gallons, now you're in dangerous territory. Same thing with CO2. That CO2 oil is specific for that. That higher weight oil is needed for those TC compressors, and they need those for those bearings. I mean, the majority of them aren't oil pump driven compressors. That they are getting there with them. That like those are starting to pop up, but these are all slinger type compressors, so they have to have that oil. Bitzer says it has to be their oil. I'll tell you right now, there's probably 30 racks in Chicago running on that the new Calgon oil with zero issues.
The RL 68 HB
or 85 H. Most of them are 85 HB.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the Copeland one. My apologies.
So this is where we get into this odd place here because, okay, say for Aldi, for example, we are using Bitzer, whether it's Kaiser Warren, Hill Phoenix, Zero Zone, we're using bits or recips for the TC compressors. And
so hold on before you finish that. 80. So that one takes 85. Go ahead, continue.
And we're using Copeland scrolls.
And it says a Copeland scroll is supposed to have for CO2 subcritical, because you're only going to typically see them on the low end side. It's RL68 HB. So you have a lower viscosity of oil in the Copeland compressor than you do the Bitzer. So, yeah, I'm assuming that might cause a couple issues.
Which is part of the reason I think we have so many oil issues with these ores we do. Like stance behind it is they go with the 85 weight for the Bitzers.
Yeah.
And Copeland just takes the beating. Think about the scrolls. I mean, they're moving oil around, just they're slingers basically. So that's going to increase the drag on that, and it's going to move less oil, I would think.
Like not slinging as well as what it would if it was a 68 weight. I mean, even though it's 30 some weight off, I mean, it's still a difference.
And the scrolls move a shit ton of oil too.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to kind of curious. I'm going to reach out to, I know United has a lot of contacts with, National Refrigerants. I'm sure they got something with an oil manufacturer. So I'm going to actually ask them, or either that or call Emerson.
This is a problem with everybody except for Kaiser Warren, because they are not using Copeland scrolls. They're using bits or recips on both, which is how I think it should be, or is the subcritical pump on a CO2 rack.
Yeah, I think I'm going to make a phone call to Emerson, unless someone's listening and they can actually tell us what's the thought on it, because there are other manufacturers that don't do that. Zero Zone doesn't do that for their subcritical CO2.
50.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. We have two Aldi racks. They have a Bitzer on a low temp, and then they have a Copeland on a low temp.
Gotcha. So the LMP and I think Advancer both don't. They're typical. Well, you know what? I guess it's probably best. It's on the size, because that's what's going to dictate whether it's going to get a scroll or not.
No, that doesn't really matter, because you should see how small these the subcritical compressors go down to. Like we have a store, literally, I could pick this thing up with one fucking hand.
It looks like a K body.
Yeah,
it looks like a K body, but they're heavy.
Yeah, this one literally looks like a K body that would come out of a true one-door freezer.
The one subcritical rack at one of our customers has that, where it was on. It's on a VFD.
I would much rather have that on a VFD than a digital any day. The unloaders stick nonstop. That is the number one failure on them for the CO2. They just can't handle it.
Maybe they're sticking because of the oil.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that could be. Who do you make happy? I mean, obviously the TC compressors move a shit ton of oil, so I mean, I'd rather have those ones, lubricated.
Gotcha.
But yeah, like that's become a problem. Now Copeland does make transcritical compressors. They're really nice. They're small, they're quiet, but we only have 2 racks with them. Those all take RL68 HP. Those ones run fine. For example, like we have a lot of racks where our customers like, okay, we're going to only put in bits or compressors. Come a thing here as of lately. We can't, or like supply chain issues, and you got a bunch of Copelands on a rack. Now you got a Bitzer. Okay, well, at least those ones take 32 oil, or you get which I walked up in a room the other day. There was a bunch of Carlisles. Now there's a Bitzer Satellite. We have different oils here.
It's still POE, right? Just different weight.
Different weight. I mean, now you're causing issues here. I mean, this needs to be brought up to the customer, and then if they still want to do that, then I mean, they're creating the monster in the closet. So you're only going to cause wear on that compressor.
Have you seen like excessive, discharge warping, like from heating because of that?
Not really. I haven't really paid much attention to it. Or it could be like a car, when your car starts knocking, you put a little bit thicker weight oil in there, it stops knocking. You buy yourself a little bit of time before that rod kisses the valve plate.
Speaking of which, so I've seen pictures of probably about 20 different compressors where, it was an older school, Copeland compressor where it shot something out the side. Have you ever seen that physically happen?
I seen a Carlisle split the whole bottom.
Flooded start?
No, it was a couple years ago. Up here, somebody had valved off in the wintertime and valved it off, and I forgot what happened. something happened. The rack house got extremely hot. It was full of liquid, and it cracked the casting.
Well, that's horrible.
Yeah, I'd never seen a rod come through the side, though. Seen plenty go through the bottom, though.
Really?
Yeah, it, like laying in the bottom of the pan. I mean, oil, like I said, guys, just look at the compressor manufacturer. Like, even on new startups, I got a rack the other day that had tag on it that said RL68. It's all Copeland's.
Oh no.
So I'm looking at it and like, obviously I know it's not RL68. I mean, you got to remember the people working in these factories half of them are temp workers. They don't know. I mean, they're just grabbing stickers off shelves. Just pay attention. Even though the rack manufacturer puts what oil they want in there, make sure it's the right oil. You don't want to be running Bitzers with 68, or you don't want to be running CO2 racks that need 85 and you're putting the wrong oil in there. Just for the word of the wise, if you're doing a CO2 startup, so you better make sure you have all the oil. This has been like a problem as of late, like not expecting, or most manufacturers are not shipping out the whole amount of oil. They're shipping out enough to get it started, and that's it.
Speaking of CO2 racks, someone put in a picture up on the Supermarket Refrigeration Tech Talk site where they were putting in a strainer on was that on the suction line?
Yeah, I never really got what their deal was. I think it was like the oil was logging in the accumulator. We've had this on one store now. It was a Carnot rack, and it's still a fucking problem a year and a half later because they will not replace the accumulator. But yeah, like oil was logging in there. So there's a pinhole in the bottom of that. It's a U-shaped dip tube. There should be a pinhole. If that pinhole's plugged up, you're not going to return oil back.
I've never seen one jammed up. Never.
Dude, we had to remember like a year and a half ago when I first came back to Climber Pros, I did that CO2 startup.
Yeah.
And they 2 weeks after startup, we started having random oil issues on the one rack. It was fine. Like randomly just started having oil issues. Well, they had us dump a bunch of oil in there. Couldn't figure it out. Well, I look at the thank God this accumulator had sight glasses. I looked down at the sight glasses. I'm like, holy shit, the sight glasses are full. So I called them and they like pause and they're like, they've seen it before. Like obviously dip tube in the bottom of the accumulator, the pickup tube was plugged up. There's no way to clean it.
Yeah. So guys, usually on an accumulator, they'll on the in, there's a stub into the top. It usually has a 3-inch piece at the very top where it drops that refrigerant down. So if God forbid you get any liquid in there, the other part that it now goes up, the out of the accumulator basically looks like a candy cane that typically comes all the way down to the bottom and then up, usually about halfway to 3/4, but not in the general vicinity of where the refrigerant's coming in. So in there, when he says weep hole, there's basically anywhere from 3/8 hole, 1/4-inch hole, or sometimes I've seen almost like a screen. Some of the Emerson ones have a screen where the dip tube would be, which I don't know. It doesn't really make much sense because screens are meant to be serviceable. So what do you do if it jams up with a whole bunch of crap?
It plugs, and if it's like what that Scott guy had, that would be like not the end of the world to replace because the 0 zone ones are small. The one I had was 7.5 feet tall and like 3 to almost 3.5 foot around. It was massive. It was bigger than me.
Jesus.
And you would have had to cut the rack into 3 pieces to get it out. It would have had to come out of the ceiling of the machine room with a crane. I'm not really sure they're doing the strainer, if they were trying to keep stuff out of there or if they were trying to reduce the velocity a little bit coming through there. But I mean, that's at the end of the day, like that's not going to fix the problem. It's still going to be plugged up and it's still going to eventually log oil. That's where like this accumulator issue becomes a problem. I kind of like what Carnot does for a little bit. Like they do like an oil like on their like big racks, they do an oil regeneration. So what they do is they block the suction and open a valve on the bottom of the accumulator and suck all the oil out of the bottom of the accumulator back into the suction header.
Oh, no shit.
Because they have a design issue.
What the hell were those oil? I don't really want to say the company that was using them, but like there was some kind of crazy setup that was supposed to get oil out of the header.
Oh, shit, on the Bitzers.
Yes.
Every store I go to, they're like disabled and ripped out.
Well, I know. And like it was such a big push at one point. Like everyone was fucking installing them. And then all of a sudden they're just now, that was probably 10 years ago.
I don't think it worked. Like it was like some like crazy Yeah, the discharge hooked up to it, and the suction. If the superheat got too low, like fucking roll oil around.
It's one of those things that I never really got into. Like I have the IOM manual somewhere for it because I remember
pretty sure they turned into like a giant leak point. But I think that's why it went away. Like I think they were like causing leaks everywhere.
Gotcha.
Like broken oil lines, and it was a lot. It was some kind of thing with Bitzer. They were the ones pushing it, like trying to get some extended warranty out of the compressors if they put those on there because they were smashing valve plates all over the place.
What's the other manufacturer that does oil?
I want to say it's New Calgon.
So Copeland has their own shit.
This is made by New Calgon.
New Calgon has their own shit, and then like you also have the Sunaso, which is like it has a Parker tag on it,
which is probably also made by New Calgon.
Maybe.
I'm pretty sure oil is just like leak detectors. It's all made by one company. It's a straight up monopoly.
I want to
just like every single leak detector is made by Bacharach.
Really? Not the
Bacharach. The Parker leak detectors, Bacharach. Danfoss leak detectors, Bacharach.
Okay, yeah, I know those. All right, so you're talking about the wall mount ones. You're not talking about the
the single zone sensors, the HG MDS 250s, the Parker, whatever they call it. Those are all made by Bacharach. Every single one of them is made by Bacharach. The Emerson ones, Bacharach. EMC, the EMC ones they get, Bacharach.
Really?
Everything. They literally bought every leak detection company besides that Inficon one. Which who knows? I mean, they probably are.
I talked to them this week, and I was talking about that leak detector, and what I was going to do is because I asked him because that actually hooks up to another one of their boards, and I was curious if I could just hook it straight up to the EMS. I had to call them up because I was asking like, what's the signal and how much voltage? Because there's nothing labeling on that leak detector, so I just want to see if it would work. Doubting it's going to work. They said it's gonna drift a little bit, but we're gonna check it out.
More to come. Well, I think it's gonna be it for tonight, guys. Thanks for listening.
All right, guys, have a good night.